Jai Hind, gentlemen, today the topic of our lecturate is Indian education system. Gentlemen, Indian education system is basically the blend of Western and the Indian culture. Gentlemen, if we talk before the independence of 1947, when the British Empire was here in India, the Indian education system was formally directed towards the English. On the other hand, there was a lot of social inequality because of which the indigenous schools as well as colleges was facing a lot of challenges, and the inclusion of the cultural education was restricted. After the independence of 1947, gentlemen, multiple national education policies came into the picture in the Indian education system. Like, let's talk about the National Education Policy of 1968, in which regional languages, or I can say the languages like Hindi, Sanskrit, and even inclusion of the English were given the priority. After that, gentlemen, if we talk about the National Education Policy of 1986, in which the terms like vocational education, practical learning, and education to the multiple castes like scheduled tribe and scheduled caste, and the promoting education among the women were given the priority. Down the road, gentlemen, if we talk about the recent one, National Education Policy 2020, it include the modern advancement because it include technical as well as multiple innovative learning. Like, gentlemen, over here, this included the vocational education as well as the early internship opportunities to the student, like since class 6 onward, so that they can have a hands-on training, or I can say practical exposure on what they are learning in the schools in a theoretical manner. On the other hand, gentlemen, vocational education is basically providing them training and the skills so that they can become the part of efficient and effective future workforce and provide betterment to the Indian economy. Gentlemen, over here, we can talk about the Indian education all the day, but considering some of the challenges what we are facing right now. Gentlemen, if we consider that in the higher education, there is a high dropout rate, or I can say the gross enrollment ratio is good in schooling, but the challenges rise when it comes to the higher education. Gentlemen, over here, if we talk about the high competition, like the competitive exams like NEET, JEE, and different kind of competitive exam, the seats are very much less, but the population who are sitting in the examination is very high, due to which the private education remains only option for many students. And because of lack of financial supports, they drop out and stop their education after class 12 also. So, gentlemen, over here, the financial challenges is also considered one of the challenge. On the other hand, gentlemen, if we talk about the infrastructure availability in the government school, if we compare it with the private schools, it is very much better in the private school, due to which majority of the population is getting inclined towards the private schooling and instead of getting into the government school. After that, gentlemen, if we talk about the inventions, or I can say the inclusion of smart classes or technology in the learning, which can improve the learning capacity, or I can say critical thinking of the students, is very much important. Schools in metropolitan cities like Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Kolkata, Ahmedabad, they are considering it. But what about the government schools? Government schools who are in tier 2, tier 3 cities, or I can say rural area. This still faces a challenge. Gentlemen, in the conclusion, what I would like to highlight that yes, education is a powerful tool for coming up with multiple change, creativity, inventions, and innovation. But it should be reached efficiently and effectively to all the children so that they can add up to the economy of any particular country. Thank you, gentlemen.